Good morning and welcome to this session about SciVal and how SciVal can help you to enhance the research performance management of your university. I'm Lucius Skumbi, the Customer Consultant for Research Management in Africa, and I'm based usually in Cape Town, South Africa, but I'm speaking to you today from Amsterdam, where the Elsevier head office is based. So what I would like to do is just to present to you what I will be covering in this session. So I'll give a brief introduction to SciVal about the structure and the architecture of the system, and then we'll look at each of the modules. So I'll look at the overview module, the benchmarking module, also the collaboration module, and focus on specific features and the way that you can use it and the way it can be used by the different stakeholders within the university. So I'm starting off with a few slides and then I'll move to the online environment and I'll show you online in SciVal how you would use the different features. But firstly, just an overview. SciVal is a quick and easy access platform to the research performance of 220 countries, and it already includes more than 6,000 research institutions worldwide, and as well as groups of institutions. So these research institutions have already been profiled, so not only do you have access to the information, the research information about your university, but also about 5,999 additional universities. So the first perspective that SciVal presents is to visualize research performance in a snapshot view. So these are very ready-made options to give you an overview of what the research performance looks like at any given time of the university. Then there's the benchmarking module, which provides the option of you to create different research entities within the system. Would it be an institution or a group of institutions or a group of researchers, and to compare those different groups or those entities with each other, looking at it across different research metrics. Then also looking at how are researchers co-authoring, so across the entire world, how are your researchers co-authoring with other institutions, and even more importantly, looking at what is the success rate of those research partnerships. At this stage, I won't be looking into the trends module, as I believe you haven't subscribed to the trends module, except to say that the trends module is based on looking at research areas and analyzing the top performance, the top institutions, the top publications, the top key phrases within research areas, and also whether they are growing or whether they are declining in comparison to the output of other universities across the world. So just to understand how SciVal works, what the architecture looks like, at the foundation of SciVal you have publication and citation and usage data that comes from Scopus and from ScienceDirect. So Scopus is an abstract and indexing service covering more than 23,000 journals, and I'll just come back to Scopus because it's very important to understand what the data foundation is of SciVal, but also of ScienceDirect, which is the full text database of all Elsevier's journals, and a large number of books as well. So the next layer constitutes a supercomputing technology. Because the system is very data rich, it needs supercomputing to be able to render the results of any information that you want to query in the system in a very quick way. Then we have a basket of metrics. In this basket of metrics are more than 18 sets of metrics. So looking at output, looking at impact, looking at co-authorships or the partnerships of universities, so covering a whole range of metrics within this basket. So we'll also look at how you create and select research entities, and I'll explain more to that when we are live in the system, except to say that research entities can be a research institution, it can be a researcher, and an individual researcher, or a group of researchers or institutions that you have created yourself. And then, as I have explained in the previous slide, the system is divided into modules, and each of these modules have a specific perspective of looking at the information. So the overview, benchmarking, and the collaboration modules each look at a different perspective, but it is based on the same data, and it has the same look and feel across the whole system. The different use cases of SciVal. So SciVal can be used across the entire institution. Executive managers will use it, for instance, to get a 360-degree performance overview of the institution, which can be used for strategic planning. It also helps research managers to identify the institution's strengths and its shortcomings. For research administrators, SciVal is very useful to be able to create management level reports. It is also useful to accelerate institutional and cross-institutional collaboration, and it supports and it helps to support and win large funding grants as well, using the metrics there to be able to express or to articulate what the performance of the university is at the moment, and then use those metrics to the advantage of the university to win large funding. Then departmental heads can use SciVal to evaluate researchers as well as the team performance. Then it can also be used for recruitment and for retention decisions, so looking at the performance of individual researchers. Because it provides access to all the other institutions or all the other researchers within the entire research community worldwide, you can use it also to model test scenarios by creating virtual teams. So that means that, for instance, if you have received funding to create a research center and have to make decisions about which researchers you would include or want to appoint within that research center, you can model test those combinations of researchers to see how they perform together within a specific research team. So researchers themselves can also use SciVal because it helps them having access to all their metrics and their performance, can help them to raise visibility and to highlight the achievements they have. It can also help them to expand their networks, of course, and to locate co-authors within their or potential co-authors that are also working within their field. Often SciVal is also used to identify mentors for young researchers. So I mentioned in the beginning that Scopus is the foundation of SciVal, and if you look at Scopus, it is the largest abstract and citation database of peer-reviewed literature, and it also features smart tools that allows you to track and analyze and visualize scholarly research. In the case of SciVal, we'll be looking more at Scopus in terms of it being a data source. And you can see in the diagram that Scopus covers more than 5,000 publishers. It indexes more than 22.7 thousand journals and more than 150,000 books. So this adds up to about 66.8 million items. And it also includes citations or cited references dating back to 1970, and a vast number of those, adding up to 1.4 million cited references. All the information within SciVal is connected, so each publication is linked to an author, is also linked to an author, but also linked to the affiliation of the authors that have contributed to the publication. So there are more than 70,000 institutional profiles and more than 12,000 or 12 million author profiles in the system. It is important to keep in mind that Scopus is endorsed internationally. It is used for research assessment and benchmarking reports. For instance, in the UK, in Australia, Portugal, and in Italy as well. And most importantly, it is also used by ranking organizations. So Times Higher Education, World University Rankings use Scopus data, and so does QS Ranking and US News Ranking as well. And there are more university ranking organizations that also use SciVal. So at this point I want to go back, I want to go online, and let's look at SciVal online. So I'm opening my browser, and in the browser I'm just going to type www.scival.com. Once you've typed this into your browser, it should, at your university, it should be it should identify the domain, the internet domain, and you'll get an access page. So on this page, you won't have as many options as I do, but you click the one that is available to you and click continue. And ordinarily it would ask you for a it would ask you to log into the system. So I'm just going to, I just want to log out. Yeah, so usually when you type in the address www.scival.com, the system will give you a login page asking for your username and your password. If you do not have this already, you can click on register now. If you click on register now, it is going to give you an option to create a username and password. This is your email address and a password that you assign to yourself. So very easy to do that, and you can register. I don't want to do it at this stage, I've already registered, so I just need to go back. And I'll type in my details. Right. I can save it and we can go. I'm going to click on the home page. Right, so on the home page you will see the different modules that you have access to. If you would not, for instance, see the trends module, but you would see all the other modules. If you scroll down, you will find some new info for some news. So what is new in the latest release that was opened for SciVal a few weeks ago, so you can get information about what is in the new release. You can also watch a webinar about recent functionality that was added. There's a lot of help options within SciVal, so you can have a look at the quick guide. There's also the SciVal online manual, and you can contact the help desk as well. We are also using social media to keep our users updated about what's happening within SciVal. So you are most welcome to follow at SciVal on Twitter and stay updated. Right. So from here we can you can see in the top menu bar, the horizontal menu bar, you have all your modules that you have access to, and then you have My SciVal, which is a module within SciVal where you can create entities and share entities, add tags to your entities, for instance, all of that kind of features and activities. Then you can move on to your own profile, and if you need to change anything within your profile, this is where you would do this. And then giving you options about your account. You'll have fewer options when you click on this feature, but you will also see all the help options: online manual, the quick guide, the SciVal metrics guidebook. You can log out, etc. So I'm going back to the home page, and I'm going to select the overview module. So as I mentioned previously, I just want to close this. As I mentioned previously, the overview module is focused on giving you a snapshot view of the institution or of the entity that you are looking at. So you'll see in the left hand bar is your entities bar. So you have institutions and groups, and it gives you the option to add institutions and groups or remove them from the section. When they are removed from the section, doesn't mean that they are removed from SciVal entirely. It just means that it is not in the window that you are working in at this moment in time. The same for researchers and groups. You can find an existing researcher by typing in the name of the researcher. We'll come back to that. A publication set can be defined by selecting a specific researcher or groups of researchers, combining their research documents and using that as a publication set which you can analyze. Groups of countries, or actually countries and groups. You can find existing country or group if this is the level on which you want to analyze the research, and then also the research areas. So there are 27 research areas in SciVal, but also 334 subdivisions. So the subdivisions and the main divisions are available. They are predefined research areas, but SciVal also allows you to be able to define your own unique research area by using keywords, and I'll just look at that in a moment. Right. So this is about the entities. If we want to look at a university, you would merely go and type on define a new or find an existing institution, and you would type the name of the institution which you are looking for. So University of Ghana, you only need to type in Ghana and it will bring up all the entities that have the word Ghana in it, and you select the entity. Right, so now your entities in your entities in the entities panel. In the case of a researcher, you can define a new researcher also by typing in the last name of the researcher. So I'm going to look at one specific researcher. So you type in the surname, the name of the researcher, and if you have the affiliation, you can also add the affiliation. Keep in mind that when a researcher publishes a Scopus, and this information comes from Scopus, the last institution where the researcher published will be identified as the home institution within SciVal. So I'm just going to use the name. Okay, let's try just the surname and the initials. Oh, it's returning too many. researchers. Just try this again. Let me go back and see why is what the problem is. If we go, I'm going back to the university view, and if you scroll down you can see view the top authors, and this is where I identified the researcher. Just scrolling down. It seems that she has disappeared. Oh gosh, this is interesting. There she is. Oh, I got the name. Sorry, I have the name incorrect. So let me go back. Apologies for that. Define a new researcher. And research. Still not finding a researcher. Search again. There you go. Oh, you see, so this is exactly what I explained. So although Vivian Rossi is a researcher who publishes for Yaounde University, the most recent institution for which him or she has published is for the Euroband SEF, right? So this researcher has two research profiles, and if it can be identified that it is the same researcher, the research profiles can be combined. So you would combine it in that way. You can look at show the most recent publications, and then you can save to researchers. I wouldn't want to do that. It is advisable for the researcher to do that him or herself. So you can go directly to save the researcher. Save and define another one, right? So here now you have the research profile of a specific researcher. So all researchers can be identified by typing in the name of the researcher using the surname and the forename or the initials, and identifying the affiliation if you are very certain of the affiliation. Another way of adding researchers to SciVal is by importing researchers. So importing researchers can be done by ways of an Excel spreadsheet, and the Excel spreadsheet just needs to be in a specific format, but we have an example for that, so you can look at this is basically what it looks like, or you can download the Excel spreadsheet file, and I'll open the file so that you can have a look at this. Although we've added some information here as an example, all you really need is the author ID, or the author ID or the author name, to be able to pull the researchers into SciVal. And you can import up to 1,000 researchers at once using this template. So I have created a template for you to show you as an example. So this is what I did is I went to import researchers. I opened the example that was available. and I deleted the information that we have in and added the names of researchers that I want to import into the system. So while you're importing researchers, it's also possible to add an institutional structure to those researchers. So these are all researchers within the University of Yaounde. They're all in the agricultural faculty. I just assumed this because they are linked to research output in the field of agriculture. So just as an example, I've added level 2, which is the agricultural, the faculty level. Then you can add another level, say for the department, so plant science, ecology, organic chemistry, plant science, and ecology. You can also add another level of institutional structure, which is the team level. So any kind of level that you want to use to import your researchers, up to 1,000 researchers can be used. It is very advisable to use Scopus to identify the Scopus author IDs of these researchers to make the import very accurate. So I'm just going to close this. And then I'm going back to SciVal. So we're done with looking at the example, and now we want to import those researchers that we have added, and we've added also a structure to them. And all you need to do is to find those researchers in your computer. So this is the file that I created, and the system is now importing those researchers into the system. So here you see the researchers have been identified, and the next step would be to import the researchers. I've already organized these researchers in groups, but it is also possible to do it at this level as well. But I'm just going to import the researchers now, and you will see it now goes into the My SciVal. And the agricultural faculty was divided into ecology and plant science, and the sustainability team. And these are the researchers I added into that team just as an example. And here the same for plant science is the department level, and then also another level for the organic team as well. So let's just go, I want to go back. So these researchers you can now look at them in the benchmarking module, for example. And what this allows you to do is to be able to compare the ecology department with the plant science department, and you have a structure for all the researchers. Right, so I'm going back to the overview module because this is where this came from, just to show you that there are a number of ways to add researchers into the system. You can just add them one by one, or you can import researchers using the example file that I showed you. Okay, so I'm going back to institutions, and let's have a look at one institution. So just in terms of the navigation, I want to point out that you have a title. So this is indicating that we're working with the University of Yaounde one. It's in Cameroon, and then more information about this or more details about the institution. So the institution is built up of a number of affiliations within Scopus, and just showing then the affiliations within Scopus. It also gives you the option to select a specific time frame. So all the information in the system can be looked at in a time frame of 5 years or within 3 years, for example. And you can select subject as well. So if you only want to look at a specific subject perspective, you select the subject that you want to use. 27 subject areas are available, and if you click on the subject area, you can also open up the subdisciplines and look at it at the research performance on the subdiscipline level. In terms of the summary, so it is now further divided into different features. So looking at the research performance of the university from different perspectives. So looking at the number of publications and citations, authors, the field-weighted citation impact, and the citations per publication. And this is for the entire institution. All the information that you see on the screen is dynamic. So we haven't selected any subject filter. We're looking at the performance across the entire institution, and we're looking at the time frame 2012 to 2016. In that time, 2,671 publications were produced, and if you click on that, you will see that it is up 28.6% over the period 2012 to 2016. So there's a very big increase there in the number of publications, as well as the number of authors. Okay. In terms of the impact, the field-weighted citation impact is the ratio of citations relative to all the publications within Scopus, where the world average is normalized at 1.0. So this gives an indication that looking at all the publications of the university, it is a little bit lower than the world average at 0.89. The number of publications, citations per publications then at 4.1. The pie chart gives an indication of the subject division of all the publications in the institution. So you can see that there's a focus on medicine, publications in the area of medicine, and this is then followed by agricultural and biological sciences. The next biggest is biochemistry and genetics, and you can also look at this in more detail. So giving you an idea of the volume of publications per subject area, and then you can drill down and look at what is the relation between the number of publications and the field-weighted citation impact. Keeping in mind that the field-weighted citation impact is normalized, so it can be used across all subject areas. It's normalized by a subject area, by the year of publication, and also by the publication type. And here you can see that the publications in the field of medicine, which is the largest, also has a very good field-weighted citation impact. So the citation impact here is 1.05, which is just over the world average. So at which is 1.0. Looking further down, you can see that agricultural and biological sciences, the output is not that high, but the field-weighted citation impact is also quite good at 0.91, which is just below the world average. But in terms of pharmacology, you have very low output relative to medicine, but the field-weighted citation impact is very high. So this is a very useful analysis where you can see where there is a discrepancy between the number of publications and the impact of those publications relative to all the documents or to the rest of the Scopus database, which is representative then of world output. I'm going back to the summary. Right, so following then on the subject areas, and just to keep in mind that all the information can be viewed in different formats. So you can look at information when you analyze in more detail. Let me just go back. You can look at it in the form of a bar chart, a pie chart, or even a table. So we have different visualizations for all of the ways that you can analyze the information, and you can export all of that, and you have different options of exporting as well. So you can export to Excel, or you can export the screen information itself into a PDF. Right. So I'm just going back to the summary, and we can look now at the metrics that give us an indication of the excellence at the institution, for example. So we have performance indicators like outputs in top citation percentiles. So these are the publications in the top 10% most cited worldwide, and 8.2% of University of Yaounde one's publications are amongst the 10% most cited worldwide. The same type of metric that gives us an idea of excellence is the publications in the top journal percentiles. So 23.6% of the university's publications are amongst the top 10% most cited in the world. And it uses the Cite Score percentile, which is calculated annually, very similar to the impact factor, and gives an idea of the average number of citations a journal receives per article within a year. So that gives you an idea of the reputation of the journal when you look at the number of citations per article. It also gives an idea of the international collaboration, and also what how many papers were co-authored then with corporate institutions or with industry. So 64.8% of publications were co-authored by at least one international co-author, and in terms of corporate collaboration, we're looking at 0.5%. This can be analyzed also in more detail. If you look into the international collaboration, you get an idea of the international collaboration, and you can change that from citations to citations per publication, or the field weighted citation impact. Right, so you can see the most publications had international collaboration, and a very high number of citations coming from those. If you change this to the field weighted citation impact, you will also see that the impact relative to the world was very high, more than the world average, where the world average is 0.1. This is 12% more than the world average. The only national collaboration shows that it is quite far below the world average. Right, and then further analysis of the academic corporate collaboration as well. I'm going back to summary to show all the features in this category. So after the international collaboration, you can also, there are some links that will lead you to the top authors. Looking at top authors of the institution, the authors are ranked in terms of the default ranking is by the number of publications, also giving the most recent publication, the number of citations, and the H index of the researchers listed here. You can change these to look rather at the citations per publication or the field weighted citation impact of the researcher. So the researcher listed here in the number 1 position, if you look at the number of publications, just changing the order there, this is the researcher with the highest number of publications. If you change that to look at the researcher with the highest field weighted citation impact, you get a different researcher there. So important to take note that looking at the reputation or the productivity or the impact of researchers. There are different ways of ranking researchers that are available. Also providing information about the H index. 500, the 500 top researchers are listed and can also be exported. As you see here, the option that you can export this. Just going back to the summary again. So we've looked at all of this, we've looked at the top authors, but also importantly to look at the top Scopus sources. So these are the journals in which the researchers publish, and it's important to take note of the reputation of the journals, because the reputation of a journal does have an influence on the number of citations usually that a researcher will receive for his publications. So this information gives you an overview of all the publications of the institution, and basically saying, if you look at the x-axis here is the top percentiles, and looking at the number of publications in percentiles as well, or in percentages. So 50% of the publications are within the top 50%, are within the top 50% of the Scopus sources by site score percentile. So very useful would be to look at the list, the actual list of the journals, and here you can also select whether you want to look at it by scholarly output. So let's have a look at the field-weighted citation impact. And here you can see that the publications that were published in Progress in Cardiovascular Diseases had a very high field-weighted citation impact of 1.96, which is 96% more than the world average. Right. So Scopus sources are here listed, also showing the site score, which is very simplistically explained is an average of the number of is the average of citations that articles in that journal received within a specific year. So in the year 2016, the journal Energy received 5.170 citations per article. So relative to that, also then an indication of either the field-weighted citation impact or the number of publications. Okay. So this is a useful way of keeping an eye on the reputation of the journals in which researchers are publishing, and also to keep researchers informed about the impact of what it would be if they published in a specific journal. What is the expectation of the number of citations for a specific journal? Right, so this is by Scopus source. We can just go back to the summary again. And I want to show you the top collaborating institutions are summarized, taking into consideration then that this is for top level managers, executives at institutions that want to get a quick overview of what is the performance of the institution. And here you can see the top collaborating institutions of Yaounde University. So showing the name of the institution, the number of co-authored publications, the citations, the number of co-authors, and also the field-weighted citation impact. So that is the citation impact, or the impact of the articles published relative to the rest of the world. And this can also be ranked so that you can look at them. So Publications that were co-authored with INSERM had a field-weighted citation impact of 339% more than world average. The same goes for publications co-authored with the South African Medical Research Council, had a field-weighted citation impact of 246% more than the world average, where the world average is 0, as I mentioned. And so you can analyze what the collaborations or what the partnerships with all these different institutions are worth for your institution, in terms of making sure that those partnerships that you engage with, that they actually contribute to the success of the university. Right, so this is an overview this is the summary page then of the overview module, and then you have the option of going deeper into all of the different document types and the different metrics that are available. So in terms of awarded grants, we receive information about awarded grants mainly from the UK and from the US, and often it is not available for all, not completely available for all our African, for all the African customers, but this is a feature that is being expanded within SciVal. So soon we will be adding more awarded grants information from which are also locally available. Then the collaboration goes into more detail about the collaboration that we discussed. So once again, just giving an overview of the top institutions, how many publications and what the impact is of those. Looking at what is published, it will give you information that we saw in the summary page, but it is just in more detail. So the publications, if you look at the view, you can list all of these publications, or this is a list of all the Scopus sources. Sorry, let me just go back. I wanted to look at the publications overall. So if you look at it from an overall perspective, you can very nicely see the increase here, a little bit lower there in 2015, but then rising again in 2016. And the actual publications are then also available that you can look at. The same for the outputs in top percentiles. It just gives you an overview, a nice visualization over the 5 years that we are looking at, and the publications in top percentiles as well, and then the most cited publications of the university are then highlighted here. Information about which publications are most viewed. So the viewed information comes from Scopus, and views information is very important also to give an idea of the interest there is within a specific for specific publications, because views or downloads of documents from Scopus is an early indication of the impact, where citations take quite some time before a document gets cited, but in terms of looking at views, it's more immediate. It's also important because there are many researchers that are looking at publications of the university, but they are not necessarily citing them. If you look at industry, for example, and even medical doctors consult, download research documents, but they don't necessarily cite them. So this is an additional way of showing the impact of your research, and also by those researchers that are not necessarily citing them. Outputs, and then it is also available in the top views percentiles, and the views per publication as well, and then also looking at the field weighted views impact. So relative to the rest of the world, the number of times that documents are downloaded is just below the world average, which is 0.4% below the world average, which is 1. Right. So you can go on and look at the different metrics that are available. Look at the societal impact. You can look at the authors. You can look at the competencies. So looking at the competencies, this is an additional way of looking at the subject focus of the university. It uses a different methodology of co-citation analysis, and it gives you on a granular level, it identifies what are the competencies within the university. So in this instance, you can see that plants, medicinal plants, plant extracts are one of the number one competency within the university. If you compare that also in terms of the rest of Scopus, all of this information analyzed based on Scopus. It is visualized in different ways. You can see it here in a tabular form. You can also look at it at a circle form. So the wheel of science is another way of looking at this, at the competencies of the university. So there you can see your number one competency of medicinal plants. The wheel of science, on the rim of the circle, you will see the different subject areas in a different color. Each of the competencies are identified by a circle. And the closer that these competencies are to the rim of the circle, the more the science is more pure. If it is more towards the middle of the circle, it is considered to be multidisciplinary. So these lines in the circle as well gives an idea of the different subject areas that are reflected in that competency. So this wheel of science also provides an idea of the multidisciplinary subject area. So the more of these competencies that you can see towards the middle of the wheel of science gives an idea of how interdisciplinary your research at the university is. This can be filtered, so you can look at the distinctive competencies, the emerging competencies, the leaders, the growing fields, those where the university has a relative large field or a small field, as I mentioned. And also you can look at only a specific subject area within all of this. Right, I just want to go back to the table and show you more information. So if you click on one of the competencies, it provides information about how the competency was created, what are the keywords within that competency that was created, and also the subject areas. You can look at the trend relative to the country and to the world. So here you see, here you can see the publications worldwide, and you can see in relation to Africa, in relation to Cameroon, and then the institution. It is also useful to look at other institutions that are working in this specific area. So here you see, for example, the University of Mainz in Germany. They also have publications in this research area. You can identify the authors that are working in the field, and you can compare with other institutions that also have medicinal plants as a competency. So here you can select, for example, or you can look at the CSIR, Biomedicine and Agriculture, and it provides the publications in this field at Yaounde, the publications in the field at the CSIR, the growth rate, the overall rank of the institution in the field, where Yaounde is number 1, the CSIR is number 6. And then information about the methodology of how the competency was identified. So in this particular instance, you can see that it was a significant large field of research. It's also a publication leader. It's a reference leader because it has the largest number of highly cited publications in the field, but it is, for instance, not an innovation leader, which means that it is not citing more recent work than the institution ranked number 2. Right. So the competencies basically providing an additional way other than just using keywords or subject areas to identify the top research areas within the institution. Right. So competencies, the competencies are available on institutional level. It is not available on the research groups or the researchers level. So looking at a specific researcher, I've selected so for a researcher that this would be valuable information to use within a CV, to use within a funding application, to be able to identify exactly the number of citations. The field-weighted citation impact of this research is 136% more than the world average. The citations per publication is at 16.2. His H-index is at 19. Thus giving an overview of the different subject areas, also showing how interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary it is, and the excellence of the researcher. The number or the percentage of outputs in the top citation percentiles, or the percentage of publications in top journal percentiles by the site score percentile. So how many of this researcher's journal are published, articles are published in the top journals in the world. Here you see the number of international collaboration, 93.1%. And then quick links taking you to the journals in which the researcher publishes, which is also useful to be included in funding applications and in CVs to show which are the journals, how many publications, how many citations. This is also important in terms of making decisions about where is the biggest success in publishing his or her specific researchers. So if you're looking at the Botanical Journal of Linnean Society, and it has a much higher rate of citations than some of the other journals in which he's also publishing, and looking at the field-weighted citation or the site score of the journal, here you can see Molecular Ecology Resources is the journal with the highest site score, usually earning about 6.06 citations per article in 2016. Right, so this was very quickly then looking at how a researcher, an individual researcher, is profiled in Scopus, in SciVal. The information then coming from Scopus. Right. So I want to, before we move on to the benchmarking, I want to quickly go into the research areas. As I mentioned, we have predefined research areas which can be used, but research areas can also be created. So if you create your own research area, just add a research area, define a new research area, and the system then allows you to use search terms or keywords to be able to define your research areas, or you can use entities. If an entire entity represents a subject area in which you are interested, you can use an entity, or you can use one of the competencies. So we've looked at the competencies that we know of, and we can use any of these as a research area as well. But I want to just go back and, as an example, add a research area that we define ourselves. using search terms. So let's use an example. I'm going to stick with the medicinal plants. It's just an example. So you type your keywords that you want to use, and then you have a number of filtering options, keeping in mind that if your research area that you want to analyze is more than 5,000 documents, you will not be able to work with it immediately. So you have to either try to bring your research area within the limit of 5,000 documents, or the research area will be created offline and it will be sent to you. A notification will be sent to you when it is available online then. So you can define that if you want to look at the research area of medicinal plants, but you only want to look at it from a pharmacological point of view, you can click that subject area and limit to. Then you have 10,800. You can also look at journals within a specific journal that was published in a specific journal or by a specific institution. So you only want to look at the top 3 institutions, for example. You can limit to. And once you have used all your filters to make sure that the research area fits your needs, you can go to the next step, and you provide a title. So we've decided this is medicinal plants, and we can stop and finish. So once the research area has been created, it gives you information very similar to any of the other entities. So you can look at the publications, you can see whether it's growing or whether it's declining. You can see it relative to the world and relative to Africa, the citation counts, the top authors, the top sources. So this is really a very competitive advantage, being able to use SciVal to analyze research areas and be very accurate in terms of identifying who are the top authors, perhaps people that you want to collaborate with, or just understanding what the research area looks like from a world perspective, identify which are the top sources, which are the top institutes working in that research areas. So very valuable information, and just relative to the rest of the world. What is the performance of this research area relative to the world? So looking at here, you can see that it is 1.04, so just 0.4% more than the world average. But what would be interesting is to see who are the top authors working in the field. Very valuable to identify in terms of being able to co-author or to partner with these researchers. Right. So that's looking at research areas then. I want to move over to the benchmarking module. So clicking on benchmarking, you have the option to select an entity, another entity, and to benchmark these two entities. So we have the two universities, University of Yaounde in yellow, University of Ghana in blue, and then select the metrics that you want to use. So we can use scholarly output, and take note that there are lots of filters that you can use, identifying the publication types, for example. So let's look at articles only, and you choose the metric. You can change the metric here and look at the number of citations, also being able to identify including self-citations or not. And then we can look at a third metric and look at collaboration then So collaboration, and then select between international, national. We'll stick with international there. Right. So this is the bubble graph, and you can see that the University of Yaounde is more successful in terms of the number of research outputs, in terms of the citation count, very slightly behind University of Ghana. International collaboration is slightly higher. So the size of the bubble represents then the last metric that was selected. But you could also use look at this in the in a table format. So here you have your output, you have your citation count, very similar, and you have your international collaboration. If you change your metric, say we change the citation metric and we look at rather at field-weighted citation impact, select that one. You can see that the University of Ghana has a slightly higher field-weighted citation impact, almost on the world average, where the University of Yaounde is a little bit lower than that. And that is even though that international collaboration at the University of Yaounde is a bit higher. So this would be interesting information to further analyze exactly why we have this phenomenon. For example, to compare the sources, the journals in which the research is published, or to analyze it by subject as well. So this is very in short what you can do with the benchmarking module. Any analysis that you do, so say we do we have the scholarly output, the field-based citation impact, and we have collaboration. We can also add another university, say Makerere University. So you can add as many institutions or as many entities, because you can also do this on a researcher level. As many entities, 3 metrics at a time. Once you've done your analysis, you can add to reporting, and you can change that, and you can add a graph, for example. You can also add that to reporting, and then you can change all your metrics, and you can look at the number of downloads, and here you can look at subject area counts, and in collaboration you can look at publications in top journal percentiles. So now you have a different analysis. You can add that to reporting. You can change the view and add that to reporting as well. And once you've done all the analysis that you need, you can go to the reporting module, and you see on the left hand side you have all your analysis. And if you want to create a report, you can just click all of them, and you click on create a report. You give your research performance analysis report created by and you can add any type of interpretation, add your description that you want to do. Once you've done all of this, you can save, and the report will be created, a report that you can distribute to management or to deans of faculties or whatever. This can be exported in CSV or Excel format or in a PDF format, right? So, and once your report has been created, it is available, and you can just update it. So if you need the same report again in a few months, you can just click on the save snapshot, and all the data in the report will be automatically updated, so you don't have to recreate any of the analysis. It will automatically update all the data that's available. So this is very useful to be able to create reports and keep faculty members updated about what the research performance looks like from a global perspective. So the collaboration module is also very important. And in the collaboration module, you have the option of looking at the collaboration or the co-authorships within the institution, looking at the current collaboration, but also looking at the potential collaboration. So this is between the between institutions, but you can also look at research areas. So if you're looking at medicinal plants, for example, any research area that you have created can be further analyzed. So let's see. You can also, let's rather look at, say, arts and biological sciences. So the collaboration shows worldwide, all the collaborations with Europe, for example, 188 institutions were collaborated, and 282 publications came from those. So if you click on that, Europe 188, you want to see more information, it will give you the number of collaborating institutions each, and you can see in Germany, for example, there were 28 collaborating institutions. You can click on those and you will see the different institutions, and if you click on an institution for Freie Universität, you will see that there were 6 authors and 2 co-authored publications. You can look at it from a table perspective as well. So here we have Germany again. Let's just see. You can rank them. Technische Universiteit. So if you want to look at this in more detail, you click on the institution that you are collaborating with, and information will be provided about the number of publications. So this is the overview, the number of publications in this period of 2012 to 2016 from the University of Yaounde compared to 1 from the University of Dresden, the Technical University of Dresden. They co-authored 1 publication. So no, sorry, this is the co-authors. The number of co-authors was 7 from Yaounde. The number of co-authors from Technische University of Dresden was 1. They co-authored 1 publication, and the field-weighted citation impact of that 1 publication, when it's combined, is 639% more than the world average. So this is a very beneficial partnership with a university, because it increases the citation impact, or the overall citation impact, when these 2 universities work together, right? So this is a way of then not only looking at which institutions are we working with, are we co-authoring with, and what is the volume thereof, but also looking at what is the impact of those co-authored papers. Are they earning citations? Are they contributing to the success of the university? So if you compare to other universities, also in Germany, you have universities where the publications have had 0 citations. So it would be interesting to look at, what is the subject area of those publications, and where were they published, and what is the reason behind those those co-authored papers not earning any citations, and if then reconsider whether it is useful to continue the partnership with those universities. If you're looking at a specific research area, it is also possible to look at potential collaboration. So which universities are also working in this field that you are not collaborating with yet? So here we are still in, we can look at the United Kingdom. There are 2 institutions. Let's go into the table format. If you look at the table format, you can see, oh, this is still Europe, so let's just look at scrolling down to United Kingdom. Liverpool John Moores University is also working in the field of medicinal science, and if you click on that, it will show an overview of the research output at this university. So we have at Liverpool, we have 2 authors, 2 papers, the number of times viewed, the field-weighted citation impact, and also the actual names of the potential co-authors. So these are the authors that have already published in that research field. So very valuable in terms of building collaborations with institutions that are also focusing in the same research area. Right, so I want to finish. This is a very quick overview. I just wanted to highlight some of the features for you. But I'm recovering from a flu, so my throat is very dry. I'm going to end off just with a few slides again. Let's just go back. Just a few websites that I want to highlight for you. So we've spoken about some of the use cases where executive managers use SciVal to get a snapshot view, to get a very quick view of the or indication of the strengths and the weaknesses of the university, of what the top competencies are, who the top authors are, etc. We also looked at how research managers or a dean of a faculty can, for instance, import the researchers and then recreate the institutional structure and be able to compare those researchers and the research teams with each other. We looked at how would a research office, for example, look at who the institution is working with, who they're partnering with, how successful is that partnership, and also looking from the perspective of an individual researcher or a research team at their research area and identifying who are the top institutions, who are the top authors within that research area, and being able to make contact and to build partnerships on that level as well. But we have a website on the Elsevier webpage. If you go to www.elsevier.com, look at research intelligence case studies, and we highlight institutions and how they use SciVal to their benefit. So very useful. There are some videos, but also just some PowerPoints and some narrative descriptions about how other universities use SciVal. I can really recommend that you look at those. Also, to understand the metrics, it's not possible to go into details about what all of these metrics mean, but we have a SciVal metrics guidebook, which is very interesting, explaining how each of these metrics are compiled and exactly what they mean. So have a look at those, and then finding help. There is a lot of help is available online. There's an online manual, there's a quick guide, there's the SciVal metrics guidebook, there's also a usage guidebook. So on the website itself, a lot of guidance in terms of using SciVal beneficially. then I'm also always available. I've got my email address and even my phone number here. So this is really my role, is to assist you and to support you to make use of SciVal and to use it really use it optimally. So you are very welcome to contact me. So let me just get rid of this. And this is my last slide. So with this, I want to say thank you very much. I hope I have given you some indication of how you can use SciVal, what all the features are, and you are welcome to contact me for any further information. Thank you very much and have a nice day.